of the conference. Hello to anybody joining remotely, as well as everybody here in not quite sunny Peoria this morning. I'm going to stand up because that feels like a thing I'm supposed to do. My name is Nate Carlson, and I'm the Apprenticeship Navigator for LWIA 23 down in Mattoon. We're located at Lakeland College. I'm joined by Bonnie Moore, who is the Director for the Center of Business and Industry at Lakeland College, as well as my boss, Jamie Kordahajawi, who's the Director for Workforce Investment at LWIA 23. Today we're talking about best practices, specifically best practices as far as collaborations towards registered apprenticeships are concerned. In the title here, you'll see that we're talking about apprenticeship navigators and apprenticeship intermediaries. And those are very jargony, very specific WIOA-y terms. But one of the things I hope you take away from today is whether or not you are a recipient of either of these grants or those titles directly apply to you, if you are engaged in business service outreach, if you are a representative for a WIOA-centric program of some kind, you can be a navigator, you can be an advocate for registered apprenticeship in your area. And similarly, if you are a secondary education partner, if you are someone who can provide, wraparound services or educational components for a registered apprenticeship, then you can consider yourself an intermediary. So this slides will hopefully be applicable to you regardless of whether or not you hold those official titles within the broader scheme of Apprenticeship Illinois. This is not Apprenticeships 101, it's definitely like Apprenticeships 103, but I did want to include a little bit of a review of some basic components of a registered apprenticeship for those of us to get caught up or just to refresh ourselves about what registered apprenticeship entails. So apprenticeship is all about earning and learning, learning on the job, combining on the job mentorship with classroom learning of some kind. All apprentices earn nationally recognized occupational credentials. In the programs we've developed in LWIA 23, we have strived to combine that Department of Labor Journey Worker Certificate with some kind of additional credential. That could be a degree program or certificate program with one of our post-secondary partners. That could be a license like a CDL. But we have really strived to make sure that all participants who complete a registered apprenticeship in our region walk out with at least 2 pieces of paper that tell their industry they're a professional in their field. Programs are business-led. As a navigator, I work to help our businesses develop these programs, but I in no way, nor does the DOL, tell them what components have to be in their programs. We work to make sure all of our programs are custom tailor-fit to the needs of the business and to the needs of the role they are hiring for and want trained for. All apprentices earn progressive wage increases. That means they start at some percentage of the journey worker wage rate or salary for that position, and they work their way up to that journey worker rate throughout their program. So if a full-time worker who's a journey worker in their field makes $25 an hour, the apprentice might start at 15 year 1, move up to 18 year 2. That's a time-based model, but we can also structure these programs in such a way that apprentices are awarded for their competencies as well, their skill gains directly. So they may have, you'll earn $1 raise for every 10 competencies your mentor signs off on. We can also hybridize this model to reward for both time commitment and competencies gained. And in that way, we're able to really increase that retention. That's one of the reasons why apprenticeships have such a high ROI and high retention rate. For every active apprentice an employer has per year, they receive a tax credit from DCEO of at least $3,500. That can increase to $1,500 if they live in an opportunity zone, an area facing significant socioeconomic challenges, and there's additional funds available if they're veterans. So that's one of the primary ways in which we can incentivize employers to make the investment in their staff, to grow their own, to cultivate their workforce, and that also aligns very well with some of the WIOA funding streams we have as well, which Jamie will get into later. So what does the DOL need to register their programs? A lot of my job is centered around helping this process become expedited for employers. They hear DOL and they want to run the other way. They do not want to get bogged down in a whole bunch of paperwork. And so we strive to make it incredibly simple for them. We've gone through the process in less than 3 weeks, and we could do it in a week if people answered emails faster. But here's what I'll tell you the DOL needs to know. One, they want to know what does the apprentice have to learn? What are the competencies needed for their role? whether it's whatever industry it's in. And there's a common misconception, I'm sure many of you are aware, that apprentices only exist within the trades. But there's actually over 1,300 occupations already registered with the DOL. So what that means is, when I want to help a business register their program, no matter what the occupation is, there is already a template for that paperwork that has 85% of the job already done for us. So we don't have to worry about getting into the nitty-gritty because so much of the work is already done. There is a template that we can draw upon. But that's one of the things DOL wants to know. What do they have to know to do their job at the journey worker level? They also want to know what classes are they going to take. What is the classroom learning, the related technical instruction that's going to supplement their on-the-job learning. That requires SIP codes, contact hours to make sure they're meeting the required 144 hours of RTI per year. And lastly, the DOL wants to know, what is your apprentice going to get paid and when are they going to get paid? When are they going to make that wage? And then it looks like this. We can see here, year one, $15 an hour, year two, $17 an hour, and so on. These three pieces of information are the core, and really the entirety of what DOL needs to help get one of these programs registered. And as I said, so much of this work is already done for us. But what courses they need to take, what courses exist within your area to supplement those programs, that's not always information that I, as a navigator, or the employer are going to have immediate access to, which is in part brings in why collaborating with our intermediary partners becomes so important. Employers face some challenges in registering for apprenticeships. DOL registration, as I said, can be intimidating. That phrase brings up a lot of ideas of bureaucracy or paperwork. There's a lack of awareness generally about WIOA. We always say WIOA is the best kept secret. As soon as employers hear about things like incumbent worker training or on-the-job training funds, they're like, what? Why didn't I hear of this 10 years ago? And so that lack of awareness is also a challenge. Smaller employers may only have one person who is their HR, their payroll, their CEO. They're all in one person, and they're not going to always have the time to go through these processes, and so they really need a hand in tackling these challenges. There's not always relationships established with post-secondary education institutions and employers. And if there is, sometimes the school schedules that are in place do not accommodate the working hours of that employer. Program curricula can sometimes be too inflexible or too broad for specific training needs. You may have an employer who really wants to put someone through an associate's degree program, but can't bring themselves to pay for 15, 18 credit hours of general education courses. And there's a need for sector partnerships and real-time workforce data to help our businesses make informed decisions about the roles that they're developing programs for. And so, to fix that problem, we have our navigators, of which I am proud to be among them. And our job is to present and provide consultations on apprenticeships to local employers, economic development organizations, Titles 1 through 4 partners, and educators throughout our designated region. We're really about spreading the word on apprenticeship, connecting employers to those opportunities, and helping them get started. We work with LWIB staff. We connect employers to WIOA funds that can support registered apprenticeship programs and develop pre-apprenticeship programs, which of course help bridge apprenticeships to equity-driven missions, and also help snag some of those employees from going elsewhere in the region. We can utilize data from sector partnerships and our existing resources to target specific roles for apprenticeship development within key sectors. So if we develop these sector partnerships and we see that there's an enhanced need and there's not being enough there's not enough product coming down that talent pipeline, as a phrase I'm sure many of you are aware of, we can develop programs to meet that need. So specifically my role in registration, when it comes to handling that paperwork, I complete the paperwork online for our employers on their behalf using the DOL software. I work directly with our DOL ATR, our training representative, to troubleshoot and refine the program standards in line with their needs. And we can develop additional occupations with employers as see fit. So we'll tell you today, we've had times where we developed an initial program with an employer for something like CDL, and they came back and said, hey, this model works really great. We would like to develop further occupations, and I'm there to help with that. But I'm only part of the equation, because like I said, I do the outreach and I handle the business once they're registered, but there can sometimes be an issue where once that happens, they've registered someone for classes, or they want to register for someone for classes, and they don't know what they're doing at that point. Which is where our intermediaries become so important. But our intermediary role doesn't just begin once their program is registered. One of the collaborative things that's been so beneficial to us has been including intermediary and navigator support in outreach as well. And Bonnie will talk about that.
I guess it's my turn to have my 15 minutes here. I'm just, okay. So Nate and I have developed a partnership where we work together to help our business partners. Both of us do outreach. So in my regular role at Lakeland College as the director for the Center for Business and Industry, I have a lot of existing business partnerships that we leverage. And when I meet with a partner and they talk to me about their training needs, I can usually decipher throughout that conversation whether or not an apprenticeship would be a good program for them to help them get to where they need to get. Sometimes it's a great opportunity for them, and sometimes if they're just needing some sort of short-term training, it might not be the best way. So we do outreach as well, and then once we've decided that we have apprenticeable, that's a hard word for me to say, positions, and we've identified what those are, because of my role at the college and the relationships that I have internally at the college, I work with the employer to help them select the curriculum that supports their on-the-job learning. Okay. So some of the things that we go through when we talk about what the apprenticeship will look like and the related training instruction are whether or not a certificate or an associate's degree is going to be the best fit for the employer. A lot of times we have found that a certificate is a better fit, at least at this point. But what we're finding now is some of our employers are starting with a certificate saying, hey, this is awesome. We're ready to move to the next level and move this into an associate's degree program. Additionally, we are able to help support them by selecting the electives that are the best for them. So for example, when we talk about our mechanical electrical technology degree, which is for industrial maintenance technicians, I'm not going to have them take coursework in programmable logic controllers if they're working mostly on robots. We don't want them to be wasting their time in coursework that they don't necessarily need to be able to do the job. We do also do some, I like to call it internal negotiations sometimes on some of those courses. For example, if we're looking at something in agriculture and the course is about farm bookkeeping and the person is not working on a farm, but they might need a course in drones for agronomy, we work with the division at the college to help them substitute those courses out so that they're taking something that's applicable. Additionally, the scheduling is a big challenge for us, particularly in programs where a student might need to be on campus 4 days a week or 5 days a week, or they might need to be on campus at 8 a.m. for a class and their next one's not until 1. We do have a pretty large geographical region at the college, so some of our students might drive 90 minutes to come to campus for a class. So we work with our division chairs in our departments to try to design schedules that helped those people be able to be at class a limited number of days or in time blocks. We have one division on our campus that has worked very hard to move all of their programs to 2-day-a-week programs so that those students are with us Monday and Wednesday or Tuesday and Thursday, and they're with us for a full 8 hours. We also have another program where students are only with us on Monday or on Wednesdays, and they're there with us for 8 hours on Wednesdays only. So that helps the employer be able to schedule around that and know what it's going to look like throughout the life of the apprenticeship. We do serve as an intermediary, and Lakeland College is sometimes the program sponsor, and sometimes the employer is the program sponsor. We have programs that go both ways with that. I do have an employer that was really afraid to register their program because they thought that they would be opening themselves up for a DOL audit. If they did that, there's a lot of fear sometimes in bringing government agencies into employer sites. So we have we've offered our intermediary services as the program sponsor, and we also do the same case management, which I'll talk about in just a second, for those programs, whether we're offering the related training instruction or we're the sponsor. I think we skipped one, but that's okay. Okay. So we also have added an additional layer in our intermediary role at Lakeland College, and we're doing case management. I'm really excited to say that I have an apprenticeship coordinator who is starting on Monday that will manage all of this, so I can take that part off of the table. But we really like to look at the apprentice as a whole, and we know that when students, especially non-traditional students, which is what we're seeing mostly in our apprenticeship programs, we know that those students tend to have a lot more questions. They're maybe a little bit more uncomfortable in the college setting. So our goal is to give them a go-to person on campus. That person can do anything as far as taking the students to pick up their textbooks, working as the liaison between counseling and the student and the employer to make sure that they're getting in the courses when they need to be able to get into them. If they're struggling with some coursework, we can help them get a tutor so that they're able to go through that. I've done some things like learned how to get somebody a driver's license when they didn't get one prior to becoming an adult. And we sometimes do a little bit of counseling as well for those students because they'll come to us and say, I don't think this is for me, or they get intimidated, particularly on the math side. So we work through all of those issues with the students. We also provide information on course attendance and progress to our employers. Of course, we do this in compliance with FERPA by having the students sign a waiver. But if we know that a student is struggling or they've stopped coming to class, we let the employer know. And we've had situations where we've sat down with the student and the employer and we've talked through, what do you need to be able to continue this program? Do you want to continue this program? And those types of questions. We also connect apprentices to the WIOA services, particularly if they're pre-hire. But we have helped them with childcare and transportation assistance. And we do all of their paperwork for the Department of Labor. That sometimes is our first introduction to them. I always say, come to my office so I can ask you nosy questions, which is a great icebreaker, to be honest with you. And then that's kind of how our relationship starts, and then we check in with them on a regular basis, and we share information with them and their employer. So we do have some limitations as intermediaries. A lot of times the intermediary responsibilities are secondary to what we do in our regular job. I know, at least for me personally, that's been a very big challenge for being able to make sure that we are able to maintain and grow our apprenticeships and also provide support for our apprentices throughout the process while I'm doing all the other regular things that I'm supposed to be doing as my quote unquote, I like to say real job, but also, whereas Nate likes to or is required to travel all throughout the district of our LWIA district, I'm limited to what we do at Lakeland College. So it's a challenge, I'm sure, for him to be working with multiple community colleges and trying to keep everybody straight. But I am only confined just to my district, so I can't go somewhere else and help them get started. And in all honesty, I'm a little limited, even after 8 years of working side by side with WIOA, in what I know about restrictions and the funding opportunities. So those are a few reasons why it's so important for us to be able to partner to make sure that these things are done correctly, because there's gaps on his side on the educational piece, and there's gaps on my side on the WIOA piece. So, do we want to share this one? Okay, awesome.
So there are a lot of benefits to working directly together as navigators and intermediaries, as someone helping with outreach and someone helping with case management and helping with the educational portion. We're able to effectively leverage existing business relationships. From early on when I began my role, it was clear we don't necessarily cold call for apprenticeships, because you're asking a business to make an important investment, and so it doesn't go over so well if somebody rolls up on your front doorstep and says, hey, would you like some money from the DOL? That does not necessarily get a warm reception. But Bonnie, in her role, has developed many successful business relationships between her, the college, and employers. And working with WIOA, our LWIA also has a lot of existing business relationships. And so by being able to combine those two, the network of businesses we're able to reach, the amount of economic development organizations we're able to speak to is heightened significantly. We're able to present on a wider array of available business services. So not only when we reach an employer am I able to talk about WIOA services and apprenticeship, but Bonnie can talk about the specified training that exists with Lakeland. She can talk about all of the services they provide as well.
In addition to that, we can really, when we're working together, we're able to provide the specifics on the curriculum that is available and the available coursework that we have, so that we can make sure that we are providing them with the training that they need to support the competencies that have been identified.
And so Bonnie has multiple spiral-bound catalogs from Lakeland that are just full of Post-it notes and have been circled and things scratched out from the employers that we visited. And it really helps us when we visit an employer for the first time. If I know they're probably going to need an industrial maintenance technician role, I can pull that work process schedule, that paperwork template from DOL. Bonnie can bring the curriculum right out of the catalog and say, here's what they would take this semester, here's what they would take this semester. And within that first consultation, they've got a pretty good semblance of what their program would look like and what the incentives they would receive for having one would be. And so we're able to present to them like a full menu of options for here's this funding stream you could utilize, and here's this tax credit, and oh, if you want to upskill, we have this incumbent worker training. We're able to present that all at once in a way that's really beneficial and helps them immediately connect to the available resources.
And I kind of alluded to this earlier when I was talking about the internal relationships that we have at the college, because it does require some negotiation at times on my part to get the coursework that we need to be able to get, or course substitutions. So I'm pretty familiar with our staff on campus at Lakeland, whereas Nate may not be, and with him traveling all throughout the district, he's not always in the office as frequently as I am. So I have a direct line to some of those division chairs so that we can make the decisions that we need to be able to make, whether that's a course waiver or a substitution. And I'm able to come to the division chairs who sometimes get insulated in the world of education because they're providing coursework, and I can come and be the voice of our industry partner to the educators, which is an important piece of being able to do that. We've also discovered that having all of us at the table right from the start makes the process go much more quickly, and it's much smoother for our employers. We can't tell you how many times we've had employers say, that's it? Really, that's it? Because we like to say when we come in, it's way easier than you think it would be, and they're still surprised when we're finished. We talked a little bit already about presenting the curriculum offerings. When we know it's an industrial maintenance position, for example, since we use that one, there's a lot of things that those people do, and sometimes we find that they're more specialized in certain areas. So an industrial maintenance tech might work in PLCs, or they might work on electronics. So if we have a job description, which is the step above even what we're asking for when we bring in that work process document, it's really helpful for me, because if I can take the job description and start aligning curriculum immediately with what's laid out in the job description before we even go to the employer site, that also helps quite a bit to reduce the amount of time and decisions that have to be made to be able to get the program registered. Some of the other things that we have done that have been really interesting and is a great benefit for us is I am not a subject matter expert on any of the programs that we offer on campus, but we have subject matter experts who are. So when we have programs, and we'll talk a little bit about this later on when we talk about a case study, but when we have programs that might be something that we don't have an existing certificate or degree program for at the college, we like to send one of our subject matter experts out to work alongside one of the employees so that we can understand what they're doing, and being able to leverage the partnerships with collaborating with Nate and myself. We've sent a variety of people out from our campus to be able to see what's happening in that job site, and then they come back and make recommendations on curriculums or programs based upon what they see and what those people are doing at their job.
And because, as Bonnie mentioned, Lakeland as an intermediary can also function as a sponsor, there is the potential to using our sector partnerships to develop multi-employer registered apprenticeship programs. For instance, if we had a sector partnership in healthcare that said there's a desperate need for registered nursing and we want to develop that apprenticeship for multiple employers, we could do so through Lakeland. And so one of the things that I hope you take away from this session, and I know there's a lot of text on these slides, and that's purposeful. That's so 2 days from now when you've forgotten everything I said, you can pull up this PDF in the Whova app, not a sponsor, and check in all the things we said. But the key takeaway I want you to have is that if an intermediary and a navigator aren't working together, then you do not have what I call the baton handoff between registration and support. If I worked alone, then I would register a program and say bye-bye to the employer, and if they don't know how to register their apprentices with the DOL, if they don't know about the available registration for their coursework, they would be stuck. But in working together, we're able to create a smooth transition where from the time we first meet with them to the time that their apprentices graduate as journey workers, they have been supported as business partners. And so there's a minimal time investment required on the employer's part with the maximum benefits to their retention and the affordability we can provide through our funding streams. And they also have peace of mind in regard to the investment that they're making. I always tell employers from the start, apprenticeship is not, a magic wand that you wave and it fixes all your workforce problems. It is an investment. You are taking the time and spending the money to cultivate an employee in your workforce. And having us as a support system through the registration and through the case management helps to alleviate any concerns they may have about making that investment. And Bonnie's already spoken to the extent that that case management approach on multiple occasions has stopped someone from walking out the door. So now we'd like to take a few case studies of programs that we've developed, talking about the things that went right, some of the things we did to highlight those best practices we've been utilizing in developing these registered apprenticeship programs. And so, Bonnie, if you'd like to talk about how we developed this multi-occupation program with the equity.
So the Equity is an agriculture-related business that is headquartered in Effingham, so that's in our district. And they came to an apprenticeship symposium, which is where Nate and I previously spoke last fall, and that's where they originally heard about registered apprenticeship programs. They came to us looking for CDL drivers and a diesel technician program. So those were fairly simple for us to get registered. But in the mix, they had a program, they wanted to develop a program for feed mill operators. So that would be a hybrid program that we developed at Lakeland College because there are components of agriculture such as animal nutrition and animal science, as well as technology because they are using programmable logic controllers to mix their feed and to automate the process through their feed. So we sent a subject matter expert from the technology division over to the Equity to spend a day with one of the feed mill operators and understand what technology they were utilizing in there. Now the Equity, their person that had come to us that we were working with on site actually had a degree and was well aware of the job and the job functions from the agriculture side. So when we sat down and went through what coursework they would need, she was able to identify that from the ag side, but was rather clueless on the technology side. So what we had done was create a hybrid program between our agriculture department and our technology department to support the needs for the feed mill operator. And that happened because we had a great relationship and we were able to leverage somebody on our campus that would be able to go in immediately and identify what coursework it would require to be able to support, particularly on the technology side. They have utilized the incumbent worker training dollars for the CDL program specifically. I think they have put, I want to say 7 drivers through our CDL program this year. Not all of them were apprenticeships, but they were able to utilize the dollars for the incumbent worker training. So that has been a great piece for them to be able to utilize all of the services that we have.
And I think that speaks to the fact that, we had this employer who, once they were partnered with us, they were able to take advantage of incumbent worker funds when they wanted to. They were able to put students or their employees through registered apprenticeships when they wanted to. Once they had that full array of options made available to them and they knew about them, they were able to say, hey, this will work for us in this scenario, this will work for us in that scenario. So rather than us prescribing what funding stream or what training program would work best for them, they were able to make that decision, an informed decision themselves.
Our next program is with Casey Summers, and this is actually a youth apprenticeship. And I want to talk a little bit about how this program came about, because it didn't come about from Nate and I holding an apprenticeship symposium or from leveraging an existing relationship with an employer. We have been working on campus with our automotive tech program, and they were one of the programs that moved to 2-day-a-week pieces. And we had a high school senior who was dual enrolled in their senior year in the automotive tech program, whose mom was at a football game. sitting next to our EFES representative, and EFES does fund the auto tech program for dual enrollment students, and they were talking about him and what he wanted to do after he graduated from high school. And I got an email from our EFES director that said, hey, I have a student who wants to work at Casey Summers when they graduate from the automotive tech program and is interested in an apprenticeship. So I called Casey Summers and said, we have a student who's dual enrolled in automotive tech and he wants to work at Casey Summers when he graduates. I'd like to talk to you about registered apprenticeships. I called Nate. We met with the employer. 3 weeks later, we had a Department of Labor registered program for automotive tech, and the student is graduating from high school next week and is enrolling in the fall courses to go ahead and get started on that program. So it's not just about us reaching out to employers and cold calling. I don't like to do that in my regular business practice. But as these things begin to grow and people start to learn about registered apprenticeship programs, this is starting to happen more and more and more. And some of this is happening because Nate and I are talking to high school students in high school. That's fun. That's a real stretch of my skill set, I'm not going to lie. Not Nate's. You're awesome at that, but that's a real stretch in mine. But we're starting to see students coming to us talking about and asking about these opportunities. So these programs will continue to grow because of that.
And this really speaks to the importance of conducting outreach with your local K-12 educators for WIOA services and for apprenticeships, because even before that conversation at that football game, I had spoken to a class of entrepreneurial students from Mattoon High School. And so before that student was dual enrolled, he was just a kid in a teacher's homeroom. And the homeroom teacher said, what are you going to do when you graduate? He said, I don't know. He said, well, what do you want to do? He said, well, I don't know, auto tech at Casey Summers. He said, well, are you dual enrolled? He said, no. But that teacher got him enrolled in dual credit and started the conversation about apprenticeships. If I had not spoken to that teacher about apprenticeships, that whole linkage of conversations that ended in this youth apprenticeship being developed and that young man having his associate's degree in auto tech paid for by that employer and probably completing within a year and a half of graduating high school. Think of what a great place he's going to be in financially. That wouldn't have happened. So by investing that time in outreach, you don't know the little ripples that are going to spread out from that. It doesn't always have to be large events necessarily.
This is a great story. I want to ask in particular, what were some specific key things that the employer did in your sentence that says employer allowed for expedited process? What were some key things that the employer did that helped?
So the employer, and this comes down to, so one of the things was this young individual specifically wanted to work with Casey Summers. And as an employer right now, with all of the retention issues and recruitment issues that they're facing, having a 17-year-old, 18-year-old kid say, I want to do this for my career, if as an employer you don't hear that and your eyes light up, you got to be crazy. So because they knew, hey, if we can make this investment in this kid, we're potentially looking at a long-term employee at a time when 6 months in, most of our employees have Indeed.com, not a sponsor, pulled up in their browser. That's a pretty incredible investment. And so they were willing to take that time. And so, I mean, within 1 week or so of that football stands conversation, we had met with the employer, Bonnie and I had. The employer and Bonnie had met with the student, and
his mom,
and we had registered the program. So it was really willingness on the employer part to commit to that process in a way that was really expedited. I mean, that's the fastest we've registered a program. I want to say from initial consultation to DOL sending out the final forms was about 3 weeks. Which is, when we talk about this process being expedited, that's pretty fast compared to what I think most people would think would take months and months or, a year for this program. And to have a youth apprenticeship develop that organically and that quickly was really exciting to us. And it was because all of the parties involved were excited, were energized, and knew what they wanted out of it. This program, I think, is really exciting to talk about when we look at like non-traditional apprenticeships and really expanding our understanding of the fields in which registered apprenticeship can be utilized. Bonnie mentioned we had conducted an apprenticeship symposium with the Effingham Chamber of Commerce last fall, and another of the conversations that originated out of that was with Montessori Kids Universe, which is a preschool provider in Effingham. And so what we developed with them was an early childhood education associate's degree apprenticeship program with Lakeland College, which was very exciting for us, in part because when we've been conducting roundtables and developing sector partnerships throughout our LWIA, the big pain point that keeps coming up is a lack of childcare. And so by investing in apprenticeships in this field, we were able to help at least one provider, and hopefully more to come, build their capacity, which benefits the entire business community. The program was developed, like I said, in response to those needs, and it was a really effective example of how we can, expand our understanding that any role that requires training, that requires certification, can be an apprenticeship. It's not just going to be the trades that are getting involved with this. If you tell an employer about this possibility, about the funding possibilities, they will make an investment in it. And like I alluded to earlier, it's through a combination of both larger outreach events like our symposium, like our working with economic development organizations, and through our one-on-one consultations that we're able to bring about these programs in a successful way. And it's no coincidence that Bonnie and I both spoke at that larger event. That collaboration is key to these programs' success.
I would like to just add a little piece on the case management, particularly in this, and I don't even think you know this, Nate, but one of our students who is enrolled in this early childhood education apprenticeship with Montessori had previously enrolled at Lakeland College in 2 other programs and had dropped out because she did not have the support that she needed to be able to do that. She's a single parent with a 3-year-old son who has special needs, regularly in and out of the hospital. And that student just told me that she is now going to be going for her bachelor's degree immediately following her graduation from her associates, because we have helped her be able to build her confidence and helped her to understand how to better manage her time so that she could go on and live the life that she's dreaming about after she finishes her apprenticeship. So that case management piece matters. It is key to being able to keep those students in programs and helping them build up confidence so that they can move forward with their lives.
So at this stage, we're going to let Jamie have a turn, and she's going to discuss the ways in which WIOA, which we're all here for, can interweave with these registered apprenticeship programs.
I was really hoping they would keep talking and forget about me, but all right. So the relationship with our partners at Lakeland College, at Illinois Eastern Community Colleges, and Kaskaskia College, it's amazing. I've seen so much blossom and bloom over the last year. It's exciting. It really is. And I'm a nerd, so I get excited over that stuff. But we really, ultimately, we're all doing the same thing. And the goal is to be able to use WIOA funding to support apprenticeships or to enhance apprenticeships. So how do we do that when, like Bonnie said, there's so many things that not everyone understands about WIOA. There's a lot of regulations, a lot of things you have to do at a certain time, and you can't do it after this time. And that's not always conducive to the timeline of an employer or of a student. So we've been working towards it. And I was trying to explain to my daughter, my 9-year-old daughter, what these collaborations look like and what this means. And everyone's talking about Gen Z being like a problem, but have you met Gen Alpha? They're ruthless. And she doesn't understand any of this. This is all dumb and it's terrible, Mom. But I thought maybe the story I came up for her might resonate with you. So we're all at the same family cookout, right? We're all there, we're having a good time, we're gonna eat good food, but we're all dancing to different songs. We got the aunties and grandma in the kitchen making the potato salad and listening to the kitchen radio. We got those little Gen Alphas in the corner doing their TikTok dances. We got cousin Josh with his new sound system showing off in his car in the front yard with the other cousins. We're all dancing, we're having a good time, different songs, different dances, but all in the same area. So by partnering with our intermediaries, with our employers, with all of our workforce stakeholders, we get together and we can start listening to the same music, dancing to the same song. And that's where our Navigator comes in. Apprenticeships comes in. So Aunt Judy has a new boyfriend or current boyfriend, and he's got his DJ set up. So he comes to the backyard, sets up, turns on the song. Now everybody's coming to the dance floor, and they're dancing to the same song, right? Different dances, some of us aren't that talented. We don't have the rhythm, but we're all dancing. We're having a good time. Ultimately, if we could get WIOA funding to support in the way that we would like, we take that to the next level. Now we're a flash mob, and we're all choreographed doing the same song, the same dance, and we're surprising grandma and grandpa for their anniversary. Apparently, flash mobs aren't a thing anymore, and I'm cringe for mentioning them, but I figured you would at least know what they are. So we're not quite to the flash mob yet, right? We're getting there. So what's that middle ground between we're dancing the same song, but some of us are getting off the dance floor. That one group of cousins is going for a walk, and they're going to come back a little giggly later. How do we all get to do the same dance? That's where DJ Nate, the Navigator, comes in, and he busts out the Cupid Shuffle or the Cha-Cha Slide or the Electric Slide or whatever the newest line dance is. I don't know all of them. It's been a while. So that's the goal, right? We want to be singing or dancing to the same song, doing the same dance, working together, and it's really exciting to see that starting to happen. It would be more exciting if we had a disco ball, though, just saying. So we're getting there, and we have up there that we could use youth work experience from WIOA for pre-apprenticeship. So what is really cool to me is we have the definition of pre-apprenticeship by, the grant terms, and it's a pretty loose definition, which is helpful in some ways. But our partnership with Lakeland, they want to be very intentional with how we use youth apprenticeships or pre-apprenticeships, that it's not just a career exploration, it is leading to an actual apprenticeship opportunity for them when they get out of high school. We don't want to lose the integrity of the word apprenticeship, right? We're putting so much effort into making it valid and getting people to understand. We don't want to just start throwing it around. So going back to our flash mob, think of the pre-apprenticeship with the WIOA work experience as getting those little kids, the little bitties, out in front of that flash mob doing their own little dance right along with the adults, instead of sending them over to the kiddie table with an iPad and letting them mosh pit to Baby Shark. We got them. We're all doing the same thing. We're all working towards the same goal, and it's a very intentional collaboration. And I'm excited for what is already happened and what is about to happen. Nate, next slide, please. So what are we going to do next? Having the Navigator and all this momentum with apprenticeships. WIOA, in the last couple of weeks, we've got a lot of different information about how we're going to continue on with this grant cycle for the expansion grant, how it's going to look next year, how DCEO wants it to look. But really, we've already started to do some of that work just organically and naturally. We have our business services team. We have all these sector partnerships and employer relationships already built up. So it's only natural for our Navigator and our business service team to work together. There's a lot of words up there. There are. So yes. So we're really bringing registered apprenticeships as part of our standard operating procedure for WIOA for business service outreach. So in addition to talking about incumbent worker training, on-the-job training, work experience, we're also talking about apprenticeships regularly. We're marketing that. We're putting that out there. It is ingrained and embedded now into our standard daily operations. Not only are we out there talking about WIOA funding to be able to support apprenticeships, we're talking about that tax credit incentives. Some industries even have liability insurance incentives if they hire on apprentices or start apprenticeships. So we're just really, it's been a natural thing to intentionally integrate registered apprenticeship programs into our service delivery methods as it is. So that has benefited. And that's the thing about WIOA. Whenever I talk about it, I'm like, it's a win-win-win because everyone wins. The student or the individual, the employer, the training provider, it's a triple win right there. So by really taking that intentional approach with registered apprenticeships, having a Navigator on staff that can lead the businesses through the process, having that really close relationship with our intermediaries, we're able to enhance our own services. I can go out there and I'm not just saying, here's the stuff we can do with WIOA. It's here's more things that we can do. Here's all of the ways that we can help you. Yes, I'm a resource and I can make referrals, but here's another way that I can help out. It's really increased the excitement of our business service team, honestly. It's something new. We've had to kind of look at things a different way. We've started talking about talent pipeline management and bringing that system to our area, and it's getting everyone excited. So recently at Lakeland, the Perkins department from the college and then the Education for Employment system got together to do the 31st annual 8th grade career conference. And I knew about this because I used to be in the Perkins department at Lakeland. So I was like, hey, you guys need some help? I'll help you out. WIOA hadn't necessarily been part of that before in the other 29 years of it. So getting to help in that really amazing, moving conference and seeing these 8th graders get excited about all these different career potentials in the area, we also got our business service team to get excited about it, right? So we had one of our business service team members, Adam, came and did a presentation as a career presenter to 8th graders. We had our partners at IDES come talk to the employers that were there. We had another business service team member just come and help out. Like, it was really exciting to see the relationships that we already had get stronger and more authentic too. So not only has registered apprenticeships benefited the students, the employers, it's really benefited us in getting us excited, reinvigorated, and closer as well. And then not to mention, just like Bonnie and Nate were saying, they're both doing outreach, but now if there's two of them doing it together, it makes it a little easier. If I can't get to a business because of my schedule, we have Nate that can step in. If employers coming to visit Lakeland and they want to see me, but I'm not in the office that day, but Bonnie is there, she can talk about WIOA stuff, get Nate into the group and everything. So it's just more efficient that way, right? We're all about efficiency. Okay, so another terrible joke that's cringe, but what do you get when you cross an apprenticeship navigator and a business services rep? A workforce development specialist. So as we went through this, I am the director for LWIA 23, but I'm also the business service rep, which means I do neither of those jobs very well, right? So as Nate's on the team and we're working together, and I'm realizing, like, everything that he's doing as the navigator, it's the same thing as a business service rep, just with that apprenticeship specialist component to it. So we want to continue to go forward and make this a more cohesive position as business service representative that is a specialist in workforce development as well. So what looks like an apprenticeship navigator consortium smells like an apprenticeship navigator consortium, walks like one, and isn't an apprenticeship navigator consortium. A business service team. So with the expansion grant, we had to have the navigators, not just a single person. It's a consortium of many stakeholders who are working towards growing apprenticeships with that one single person as the face and the contact. So instead of a lot of the people and entities that we had in our Apprenticeship Navigator Consortium were part of our business team. So why start something new when we already have this going on that is just as valuable and can do the same thing? So now we're pulling those consortium participants into our business service team to enhance that and make that bigger and better than ever as well. So just integrating apprenticeships into ongoing outreach is a best practice for all WIOA partners, post-secondary educators, and business champions. So right there, that's that win, win, win again. I'm going to ask you to go one more real quick, though. Can you go one more? Shameless plug. LWIA 23 does have a podcast, WIN, Workforce Innovation News. It's the official podcast, and we talk all things workforce development and workforce innovation. We're on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. You can also just check out our website, LWA23.net, and you can find us there. Listen in. There's a lot of awkward questions from me to our wonderful guests, but it's exciting to hear the really cool things going on in LWIA 23 and all things workforce development. Then I'll let you go back.
Jamie, if somebody wanted to share something exciting they have going on in the area of workforce development, could they be a guest on the Workforce Innovation News podcast?
Certainly could. So if you have a really cool, innovative thing that's happening and you want to talk about it and you want a new platform, let me know. We'll get you on the schedule. We'll record a session, and then you can use that episode, that podcast, however you want to spread the word and market your new initiative or cool thing going on.
Wow, that sounds like a great branding and marketing and outreach program for individuals who may not be able to use their budget for marketing or outreach, huh? At this time, we'd like to take any questions.
Could you discuss what some of the businesses have told you are the non-monetary benefits of a registered apprenticeship?
Absolutely. So I always like to say that apprenticeships have you can quantify the benefits of apprenticeship in a lot of ways, right? There's the retention rate from DOLs, 93%, the ROI about $1.50 on the dollar, but there's a lot of intangible stuff as Lee alludes to as well. And specifically, when we look at company culture, cultivating from within, growing your own, upskilling, that's going to showcase an opportunity within your organization that doesn't exist otherwise. The transparency that apprenticeship provides about wages, about career pathways within an organization. Additionally, immensely beneficial for retention. The mentorship component is also huge. A lot of people who get to be journey workers, they may be at a place in their career where they're burnt out. Where they've been doing the same thing for maybe even a couple decades. Having that opportunity to pass on what they know, to influence the next generation, to feel like they are making a substantial difference and that they have been trusted with that responsibility within their workplace is huge. And while that's not necessarily quantifiable, it is a huge boost to company culture, and companies will see benefits to retention that follow that. Great question.
Hello. Could you address what the difference is between a pre-apprenticeship and a youth apprenticeship?
Absolutely. So a youth apprenticeship is an apprenticeship. It follows the exact same model as a registered apprenticeship, but starts while an individual is generally still in high school. A youth apprenticeship may expand beyond high school. They may start as a senior in high school and go directly into a certificate program or two-year degree program or, training of some kind post high school. But the difference is it starts while an individual is in high school. And that's very appealing to a lot of employers, particularly in our some more rural regions where, there's sometimes a very pernicious belief that goes about that, being successful means going somewhere else. Being successful means getting out of there. And with youth apprenticeship, what an employer can do is showcase an opportunity for someone to do the thing they want to do for competitive pay right where they are. And by starting that in high school, it helps to catch that talent before they move off and go somewhere else, which is very appealing to a lot of employers. So that's a youth apprenticeship. It's a regular registered apprenticeship that starts while somebody is still in high school. A pre-apprenticeship is not registered with DOL. As Bonnie said earlier, it's a lot more loosely defined, and it can look like a number of things. Some pre-apprenticeships might be focused on addressing skills gaps. If you have somebody who you want to take on as an apprentice, but they might need some ESL coursework or basic skills or basic mathematics coursework, that might be a pre-apprenticeship. If you have somebody who you have in an internship who you'd want to, have them try out the company culture, see if they like the field, and then move them into an apprenticeship, that might be a pre-apprenticeship. It's whatever the needs of the programs are. As Jamie said, though, we have been very careful to not promote anything as pre-apprenticeship that does not directly tie into an apprenticeship pipeline. There may be, funds available for pre-apprenticeship. We want to use them with a conscious effort to maintain the value of apprenticeships and of pre-apprenticeships in that way.
So for the required credential, does that have to go through a 2-year college or university, or I guess who counts as a certifying body for the credential?
So the only requirement from DOL, they will receive a journey worker certificate when they finish. That is the credential. We have worked to make sure that our apprentices receive, in addition to that, some kind of additional credential, whether that's a CDL license or a certificate or a 2-year degree. But for apprenticeship, the vast majority of training providers can qualify for related technical instruction. Whether or not that all qualifies for things like IWT funds is going to be dependent on, the standard IWT rules.
I'd like to add to that just a little bit. So, like, for example, with our automotive tech apprenticeship that we have with Casey Summers, they do have additional coursework that is outside of what we do at Lakeland College that is built into their apprenticeship program. So, for example, automotive techs often go to OEM training. So if they're going to work on Nissan, they go to a Nissan school. Ford, they go to a Ford school, et cetera, et cetera. So we have built those additional components into the registered apprenticeship program, even though we're not the related training instruction provider. So there are cases like that. And Montessori is the same way. They have a Montessori University that's an internal training system that they have there, and they do have requirements for their lead teachers, and we have built those into their apprenticeship program as well. So it's not just necessarily the community college that's providing the credentials associated with the apprenticeships. Mm-hmm. Oh, I have the microphone now. I have to bring it.
Kudos to you guys. This is awesome. So, local areas that are not, in lockstep with their community colleges or their other partners and all, what kind of guidance would you give them? Like, what if you had a symposium, you have some events, you guys work well together? What if people don't collaborate well together? What would you give advice for?
I'm sure Bonnie can speak to this as well. I would say, as a navigator, certainly, as someone trying to promote WIOA services or apprenticeships, you're not going to succeed alone. Economic development organizations have been crucial to us in outreach and being champions for us on behalf, because once you get them to buy into these programs, they're going to make sure that all of their members buy in as well. Having the willingness to have awkward meetings, having the willingness to get on a grumpy Zoom once in a while may be that step that's needed to build that trust and build that relationship. And truly, because WIOA services and intermediary services and community colleges, they fit so well together. If there's not currently a relationship there, I think the work to develop one is worth it.
I think it's important also to remember, we're all in the business that we're in because we want to give people more opportunities. And if we can search for that common ground, it's important. But the reality is community colleges are hurting for students. A lot of WIOA have money that they need to spend. And we have a lot of people in all of our areas that need an opportunity and need some help in moving up to that. So I think if you can keep that in mind, that even when you are having the awkward meetings or you are knocking on somebody's door for the first time, that you're all searching for common ground. You might have different reasons that you're doing it, but it's important to recognize that we all have the same goal in mind. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes it's just persistence. There have been a lot of times that I have asked the same question of the same person in about 45 different ways. And some of it's just tenacity and an unwillingness to just give up. You just keep coming back because eventually they're going to get sick of you and let you in. That's great business advice. Anyone else? Okay.
So question, so in regards to high schools, how do you all have the relationships with the companies, or do we say, look, we would like to build a relationship with this company and then you all contact them? What are the first steps into building that relationship to start that program?
High schools may have pre-existing relationships with some employers if they have an SOE or some type of cooperative education agreement that already exists. Apprenticeship and youth apprenticeships in particular to go hand in hand really well with that if they have existing experiential learning opportunities provided through that high school. If there aren't those existing connections, I think using WIOA as a liaison to make that relationship is a great practice.
You might be getting ready to say what I was going to say, but there is legislation from the state that is requiring increased partnerships between community college and K-12 education, especially on the realm of career exploration at an earlier time. So our guidance counselors know this and our K-12 educators know this, and I'll be honest with you, some of them are really lost about how that can happen, and that's a great opportunity to knock on the door and say, oh, hey, we have the answer to be able to do that.
Ditto. But also connect with your local WIOA career planners, because if they're already working with youth in youth work experience, they're making those relationships with the employers that are serving as work experience sites. So there's already some built-in relationships there that you can lean into as well, that it just makes sense.
All right, and I think that's going to be our time, but thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the conference. Thanks.
Thank you.